Okay, let's go.
We're all faced with choices every single day. Some are huge, some are tiny. And sometimes it feels absolutely impossible to know if we're even on the right track. So today, we're going to explore this really powerful idea. How do you find your own internal compass, your own North Star, to navigate life's biggest crossroads? Okay, so it all starts with this simple, kind of unshakable truth. You can let yourself get distracted by everything pulling for your attention, or you can do truly incredible things. But here's the catch. You can't do both. Life is just a giant game of trade-offs. Every single time you say yes to one thing, you are by default saying no to something else. This famous bit from Alice in Wonderland just totally nails the problem, doesn't it? If you don't care where you're going, well, then any road will get you somewhere. You're guaranteed to end up somewhere, but is it a place that actually means anything to you? And that's exactly why knowing your direction, your destination, is so critical. Which brings us to this monster of a question. It's funny, the simplest questions are almost always the hardest to answer. I remember back in college job interviews, I could talk your ear off about books or what was happening in the world. But the second they asked, "So, who are you?" Just crickets. I totally froze. My brain had just never really gone there. It's this profound question we just forget to ask ourselves. And that's where this idea of a North Star comes in. Think of it like your internal compass. It's the thing that points you towards who you really are and what genuinely lights you up. It's the destination that turns all those trade-offs we were just talking about, from random, chaotic choices, into deliberate, meaningful steps forward. It's the answer to the Cheshire Cat's question. So, how do you make this big idea feel, well, real? A friend of mine was once asked, "What's your perfect day?" And when they said, I don't know, the other person's reply was just brilliant. They said, "Well then, how are you ever supposed to have one?" And that's such a perfect gut check, right? If you can't even define what your perfect day looks like, how can you ever hope to build a life full of them? Okay, so if finding this North Star is so important, what's stopping us? What's the big obstacle? Well, it's often the most tempting one. That seductive, cozy comfort of just being normal. So what do we even mean by normal? Well, by definition, it's the usual, the average, the typical. And look, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But here's the thing we forget. Choosing normal is a choice. It's a decision to stay in the middle, to kind of blend in, to follow the path that's already been paved. And that choice has a really direct formula. It's simple, really. If normal effort goes in, the normal hours at your job, kind of sort of paying attention to your health, the typical amount of energy in your relationships, then it's no surprise that normal results are going to come out. Not bad results necessarily, but definitely not remarkable ones. So what about the alternative? There's this great saying that goes, if you want what the top 5% have, you need to be willing to do what only the top 5% are willing to do. See, their results aren't normal, they're uncommon. And that's because their actions are uncommon too. And here is the absolute key. That uncommon action, it usually isn't some huge, complicated strategy. A lot of the time, it is the simple, profound, and incredibly courageous act of just being yourself. In a world that is constantly pushing you to fit in, to be normal, just choosing to be authentic, well, that's the greatest accomplishment of all. It's the very first step towards something uncommon. All right, so we know the obstacle is our desire to be comfortable, and we know the goal is to be authentic. But what does that actually look like in a real, decisive moment? Well, it all comes down to what you do when your hands are shaking. I want you to picture this scene. It's an open mic night at a coffee shop. This young woman gets up and walks to the stage, and she tells the whole room, "I've never done this before, but I've always wanted to." And in that one moment, you can see it all over her face. She is both completely determined and absolutely terrified. We've all been there, right? Her desire to finally try was just a tiny bit stronger than her fear of failing. But as she started reading her poem from her phone, you could see it. I mean, her hands were visibly shaking, so much so that she had to put one hand on top of the other just to hold her phone steady. That, right there, that's what fear looks like. And this is the moment where the magic happens. The biggest, most important moves we make in life happen right here, in this shaky space. It is so easy to stay home where it's safe, but courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling that fear, feeling your hand shake, and doing it anyway. That single moment is the difference between staying exactly the same and opening up a brand new chapter in your life. So, what happens when you start stringing together those moments of courage, when you learn to act despite the fear? Well, that's when you earn the right to paint your own masterpiece. So many of us feel like we're defined by our past, right? By our mistakes, our regrets. But listen, those experiences are not a life sentence. The past is not who you are forever. It's the wisdom you've gained, the resilience you've built, the lessons you've learned. The past is the advantage you possess right now. I absolutely love this quote from Tiger Woods. After years of very public struggles, injuries, a really bad car accident, he was playing in a tournament and he just barely made the cut for the weekend. He was nowhere near his peak, but he looked back on it and said this: "I've given myself a chance." He knew that just by showing up, by surviving, he had earned another day, another shot.
And that applies to every single one of us. All of your past experiences, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, they have all brought you right here to this moment. If life is one big tournament, guess what? You've survived. You have made the cut. And tomorrow is a completely fresh start, another chance to right the ship. You have given yourself a chance.
So remember, this life, it's not a paint-by-numbers kit. It is a completely blank canvas, and nobody else's masterpiece will ever or should ever look like yours. The meaning, the purpose, the direction, it all begins with a simple willingness to start. Your canvas is blank, so the only question left is, will you pick up the brush